money is a really big deal right now because of the tariffs. They really are very vulnerable to the tariffs. Anxieties are rising. In case you haven't listened to Anxieties Are Rising before, this is the moment I take during the week to look at what the industry is saying and think about the fact that it sounds like they're pretty nervous about things. And as I always like to say, there's only two groups of people who really know what's going on factory farms, what's happening to animals, and, all the other harms that are being caused on factory farms, us and the industry. And they're worried other people are going to find out. And they're worried about a lot of things. So that's what we like to talk about once a week. Now, the thing that they're really worried about at the moment, more than anything else, actually money is the thing that they're always worried about. But money is a really big deal right now because of the tariffs. They really are very vulnerable to the tariffs. And as is borne out by this article in aginfo.net, U.S. cattle and pork producers losers in China trade war. And this is by one Lori Bayer. And they always like to portray themselves as, very vulnerable, even though they make really, really a lot of money. But they are vulnerable to this. I have no doubt that they will get themselves out of it, that somehow the government will use our tax money to somehow make them whole for all the money they're losing because of the tariffs, or they're going to lose. I assume that they just think they're going to end. But, according to this Aaron Borer, U.S. Meat Export Federation Vice President of Economic Analysis, there's a mad scramble to try to essentially find new homes for this product that is in the pipeline that was produced for China. Now, homes for the dead animals. So it's hard to find homes for dead animals. And that's partially because apparently the meat that is prepared for China has, certain aspects to it that make it very specific to the Chinese market. So they're really, really worried. As I said, they usually find their way out of it. And usually it's because we pay for it. All right, our second article for this week. Brazil charity project could hurt more than help. Community poultry farms attract criticism as possible centers of disease transmission. This is by Mark Clements. It's from WhatAgNet. And so apparently it's these tiny little community poultry farms that are causing disease transmission among chickens these days. He keeps saying how well-meaning this project is. It's to increase food security by allowing what he characterizes as underprivileged groups in the south of Brazil. And they're increasing food security for these people by helping them build chicken coops and helping them raise chickens for both meat and eggs. And they're really worried about it. This has to do with, a mere 6,400 birds being put into the quote-unquote care of Indigenous groups. And it's being rolled out by this particular charity and supported by a power company. And it all sounds great. But the area that it's in, these are Guarani communities, and it's in the southern state of Paraná. And it would benefit over 500 people. But Paraná is apparently ground zero for poultry production in Brazil. And they're pretty worried about all of the other poultry. And actually, this is just the first step because similar projects are being rolled out for swine and fish farming. It's not exactly clear how intensively confined these animals will be, but it sounds good to everyone except me. And I'm not going to get into whether this would be a viable idea because there's a lot of things that go into the decisions about, feeding Indigenous people that I don't know about and I'm not going to opine about. But a lot of poultry producers are opining about it because Paraná is Brazil's largest poultry producing region. And they are a complete wreck because these farms, they say, will have little regard for biosecurity, unlike the factory farms that I'm sure are doing great with it. They're probably doing a little better than they used to because they're scared of getting bird flu. And in addition to being Brazil's largest poultry meat producer, it has long been Brazil's largest poultry meat exporter. An exclusion from international markets due to, for example, an AI outbreak could, of course, cost billions. There's a lot of money on the line here. And allowing just regular people to have little chicken farms, apparently, is not the way to keep these animals safe or secret or whatever. So they don't want this to happen. They want the chicken production to be kept all to themselves, all in the factory farms, none of this little, these cute little farms belonging to normal people. They're a wreck. We'll see what happens. Who do you think's going to win that one? All right, this is a crazy story. This is from What Agnet by Roy Graber. It's about something I have never heard of, and it's called grain entrapment, and apparently it's a big thing. And I assume this has to do with, since this is a poultry website, I assume it has to do with feeding chickens, but maybe it also has to do with other animals. It has to do with storing grain. And the title of this article is Grain Entrapment, Focus on Prevention over Rescue. And the subtitle is Most entrapment incidents have involved attempts to deal with out-of-condition grain. So more education needs to be offered to keep impurities out of grain. This is insane. So they have this picture, of all these little silos where apparently is where they store their grain. And apparently they regularly have training with fire departments about grain entrapment and how to rescue people who are involved in a grain entrapment incident. And this is done pretty regularly, I guess. Rural fire departments are trained all the time on this, another way to subsidize the industry with your tax money. And the people in charge say that we can no longer just be responding to these incidents. We have to be preventing them because in recent years, there has been an average of about 34.2 entrapment cases annually. And apparently what happens is that people go in to clean, the grain gets stuck, especially if it's not clean or I don't know what happens to it. It gets stuck together. People go in to clean it. And 60% of the victims are dead when the fire engine arrives. Like, what? How many people a year is this killed? And this just happens year after year after year. Farm workers are killed by being drowned in grain. What they're saying is that training firefighters to recover bodies is really not the goal here. So it should be talking about how to prevent them, which, has to do with apparently basic cleanliness issues and, keeping the bins really tightly closed and protected so they don't get infected with whatever it is that makes it all stick together and workers have to go in to break it up. What? Every single year, all these people die doing this. Yeah, I wonder which people these are. Wow, it's insane. And, what they point out here, this guy Field, who's the guy who's, rooting for being more proactive about preventing it, who does the trainings on recovering these bodies. When you do a scrape of the media, almost every grain bin entrapment gets attention from the media. And then I get calls immediately wanting us to do a grain rescue training. Killing that many people every year. Maybe they shouldn't just be responding when there's an event in the media. These people are crazy. All right. California sheriffs, you will be happy to hear, are crime fighting their way across California by opposing wolves. Apparently, there's a lot of crime committed by wolves. California sheriffs join in support of livestock producers' fight against wolves. Yeah, this is from Drovers. In light of escalating gray wolf activity, sheriff departments from 7 California counties are uniting to oppose environmental policies they believe threaten ranchers and farmers. This has to do with wolf-free introductions and protecting wolves. These policies are put together by California Fish and Game. I don't know how I feel about wolf-free introductions when they just go out there and people kill them. And hate them, but whatever. There's a lot of wolves now in California. And of course, they're killing livestock because that's what people do. They stick these cows out there, and probably sheep as well, vulnerable to wolves. So, of course, the solution is obviously to get rid of those wolves. It's obvious, right? Because you can't get rid of the cows. All right. Over the past 28 days, ranchers and residents in California's Sierra Valley have been under siege. I love the war references, from escalating gray wolf activity. While the presence of wolves in the valley is not new, this spring has seen a dramatic increase in attacks. And so the sheriffs of all these counties, Siskiyou, Modoc, Latson, Shasta, Plumas, Sierra, and Tulare, are standing united in opposing environmental policies. What business is the sheriffs to oppose environmental policies? Because they, quote, threaten our ranchers and farmers. New proposed restrictions on predator management, i.e. killing wolves and coyotes. I mean, coyotes come in here as well. And it's just unbelievable. Like, now they're going to prohibit the taking of coyotes. That's what they call killing, taking, unless direct evidence of property or agricultural damage can be shown. What they want to be able to do is just kill coyotes, like, whenever they see them. I mean, that's clearly what they want to do. But these sheriffs, like, what business is it of theirs? And who cares what they say? Of course, the money, follow the money, always follow the money. One wolf can cause up to $162,000 in losses due to reduced growth and pregnancies. And that's in addition to the ones they kill. I could fix this so easily. That's what I keep saying. Just call me.
Thank you so much for joining us today for Rising Anxieties. And please remember to subscribe and like wherever you can do any of that. And if you are so inclined, you can, of course, donate to our efforts at ourhenhouse.org/support.